Welcome to another edition of Cambridge Inside Out. My name is Robert Winters.
And I'm Judy Nathans.
We have our special guest today,
Yes.
Ronald Benjamin.
Ronald Benjamin, who actually, believe it or not, is going to be a city council candidate in 2017.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
All right.
I like to start ahead, huh?
Yes. Preparation is key.
Yeah. So anyway, let's see. So I suppose I should probably ask a few. Actually, first tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and I came to Cambridge about 18 years ago. 18 years ago, I went to Harvard Extension School. I did master's in liberal arts. I didn't complete. Then I transferred to UMass Boston, where I got my master's in public affairs in international relations. And over the period of time, I've been at St. Paul down the street for about 18 years. Pastor Leroy Adels. Yeah. And that's where I got a sense of my civic duties.
Good.
And it was actually, is it Leroy Adels' wife was Henrietta Adels?
Right.
Adels.
Who was...
She was on the Cambridge School Committee.
That's right.
And she actually, the meeting room for the Cambridge School Committee is the Henrietta
I knew it sounded familiar.
Adels meeting room.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's one of the great Cambridge families.
Yes.
That family really held me tight.
Right.
and did well with me, they were close to me,
Okay, so now, of course, the number one question you have to always ask any either prospective city council candidate or new city council candidate. It is a little weird, I have to say. I mean, it's not even September of the even every year, so we're kind of looking way down the road, but you know, sort of good to get started. Is why run for a city council seat?
Well, I mean, 18 years ago when I first came to Cambridge, I felt a greater sense of connection in this city, although I was a student, but I felt that I didn't know the people, but somehow I felt connected to them, walking around, people used to say hi and bye, and now it's a little bit different, it's not the same. So why I'm running is because I feel that I have the experience where I can bring this concept of connection, make it something that we can all be part of, in different ways. And connection means that, hey, I don't have to know you in details, but we are connected because we are here in this city. And I suspect this city matters to us all. It's a great city, has a lot of history, but also it's a city of great people. So we as people can be, good in that connection. So that's one thing I see missing now, and I think I can bring that.
I think one thing that contributes to that being something we're missing is we have such a much higher rate of turnover of the population than we used to. I'm just thinking even in my own immediate neighborhood, I used to know all my neighbors, well, not everyone. I mean, there's some folks who you just never get to know. But people who had bought a house many, many years ago for $30,000, somebody offers you
many years ago
$500,000 or $1 million. So a lot of people have left town and new people come in. So it's kind of hard.
Yes, it is kind of hard. So this is why I feel that it's so important now to talk about this, where this new concept now of gentrification has really had a major impact to the city. I mean, 18 years ago on the street that I used to live, Fairweather Street, I knew at least 9 families with homes. And now it's about 2. Yeah. My old landlord, which is now my adopted mother, Deborah Anderson, and it's her and someone else down the street. I forgot their name now, but certainly that's what we have. Mr. Johnson. Yeah, he lives on that street as well. So,
and for the historians amongst you, there actually is a precedent of a gentleman of Fairweather Street. I guess it's Upper Fairweather Street, who's on the city council, who is Tom Coates.
Yes.
Some years ago.
He was a good man.
Yeah, no, I met him actually. I met him of all places in the public works yard when he was bringing things in for recycling before he moved away. So, I think there were a few other things I was maybe going to mention about this. When you had a gathering this past What day was it?
Thursday.
It was the last Thursday from
Thursday.
7 to 8:30
So it was a thing
At St. Paul's.
at St. Paul, the Christian Life Center.
right? And we're not doing any computers for this today, so we'll just do it, hold it up the old-fashioned way, right?
Yeah.
So
It already happened, too.
Around some parts of the port I've seen down here, close down toward by MIT. There's a flyer here advertising a town hall meeting saying what are our issues. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how that went?
Oh, it was a great success. That first, the elected official for the city, it was a large proportion of them that came.
Right.
Our mayor, our wonderful mayor, Dennis Simmons, she came. Our ex-mayor, Ken Reeves, he was there. Councilman Tim Toomey, and also Leon Chang was there. So they expressed so we had a dialogue between what the issues were for the people in the community living day in and day out. And they were expressing, some of them, their frustration with the city. That I think one of the biggest one is the fact that they feel as if that they don't matter, that their lives no longer matter to the politicians, elected officials, because of who they are, perhaps their socioeconomics, and the new people coming in who are buying the new homes and so forth are pretty much not getting along with them as well it would be expected.
Right.
It's the sense of neighbor, or the good neighbor is pretty much absent. So that was one of the primary issues that was brought up.
It's an interesting thing that every time when we come through a city council campaign, there's this phenomenon where, and actually, I'm not going to go off on too much of a tangent. I've been known to do that. But there was a proposal for putting together a guide for the municipal election. I think it's still under some discussion. We'll see where that leads. But in it actually had part of the proposal was that it would certain neighborhood groups would determine what the issues are and would get questions from the various candidates for public office, and that would be part of this brochure. And that struck me as kind of strange, because you have a situation where you're basically, see, this flyer here says, the big phrase was, what are our issues?
Our issues, yeah.
Right, but oftentimes when it comes to, in advance of a municipal election, there are groups, either neighborhood groups, advocacy groups, whatever, who basically are telling you what the issues are and saying, now you, candidate, you must respond.
Well, they're usually the ones sponsoring the forums.
Often the ones that
Yeah.
are sponsoring the forums.
So they already have
Right.
an agenda.
What I thought was a little weird was this notion about actually having the official brochure of the city about the elections actually being driven by issues that are defined by people other than the candidates, other than the people, the city. So this, when I saw the flyer and I said, "What are our issues?" I thought, well, that's a different take.
Yeah, a different take. So
Did you get a lot of participants from the church itself? I mean,
Well, not the largest proportion came from the community. St. Paul showed up not as well as was expected for it to show, because St. Paul itself has been impacted by gentrification.
I was wondering whether numbers have changed.
I mean, my expectation more of the congregants would have shown up, but the ones that live, in Boston and
So you
places
get a
like
lot
that.
of congregants that come from all over.
Yeah.
just Cambridge, huh?
We are really a universal
Well, that makes
congregation in
sense. It
terms
wouldn't
of the
show
city.
up to a Cambridge
But
thing.
the community of Cambridge really showed, and they had a lot to say on how they have been frustrated with things. Even how the police now police their neighborhood. So they had ideas on how it can be better in terms of to do the police really understand their culture and their lifestyle.
Right.
So we had a back and forth. I mean. Ideas were proposed, but certainly the conversation need to go.
Yeah.
So what are your next steps?
The next step is to have more conversation. I mean, we started as just the community speaking out. The following events would be the community with some city government agencies,
So
and
you collected emails. And
we have about 26 emails
Good.
of the people.
That's good.
The following
Start.
would be, but the church will be ideally the center place where that conversation goes on. So it would be the people with academia, the people with other churches and so forth to see what we can do to really empower the city. Because at the end of the day, you know, we the people are the city. So if we can be more connected in how we live our lives, I suppose would be a better Cambridge. Yeah.
Hey, that's the name of an organization. It's true. Yeah. You know, it's interesting. In a kind of a parallel way, you know, there's been this process, this thing called Envision Cambridge.
I was just going to say that.
You know, which grew out of the desire from some people to have a master plan for the city. And the biggest part of that whole process was basically just...
Still going on.
And still going. I think it'll go on for the next several years, is really just kind of doing the grand tour of the city, saying, well, what's important to you? How do you define
And have they come to St. Paul? Or
Envision, I've not been yet.
Envision has not approached?
Maybe when I was now around, but I have not been in touch with them. But certainly I look forward to partner with them, because this concept of connection, it will be... You know, me and the other partnering groups will find.
Yeah, you should definitely get a hold of them, because they're looking for people like you.
And they're making efforts to reach out in ways that are not typically done around the city.
Yeah, they have community meetings.
There's kind of a default around Cambridge, I think, in not a good way, where people would default to going to the established neighborhood groups. But then, the neighborhood groups tend to be somewhat self-selected. You know, I remember actually when we were getting recycling going many years ago, there was a woman named Noelle Serpa who was active with St. Anthony's Parish down on Cambridge Street. And basically she was probably outreaching to more people than any neighborhood group combined, because sometimes some of these church congregations are actually really large. I've actually heard that if you wanted to find affordable housing in some respects, there are networks that exist through some of the local churches and congregations that actually are some of the best ways to actually find out about.
A classic example is I find my apartment through St. Paul.
Wow.
You know, I went
there. You go.
And I said, hey, I'm looking for a place, and word of mouth.
Yeah.
So and this concept now it's fading away, because the congregants no longer have home. It used to be they would. When the student would come from, I don't know, like an out of state and come to Harvard or Tufts, they would have a place for them, but they don't have to look too hard and find a realtor. At the church, we'll have someone available to have a room, and the idea now is the owner of the home will groom that student, in terms of, okay, this is how the real world works, this is, but now, I suppose there's other things going on. It's not the same,
Right. Well, one of the issues that you mentioned came up at the town hall meeting was about how community interacts with police. What are some other issues that came up at the town hall? I mean, I think one thing it seems almost certain that people would bring up is just affordability.
Yeah, affordability is huge. I think our ex-mayor shine a light on that. I mean, affordability, again, the issue of, I know it's no longer, I guess, the issue of rent control. I know it has, had its costs, but certainly there's not a viable solution as to the price of rent, it's pretty much going at a market rate that is unaffordable to the average person that lives here who have 40 hours work week.
Yeah, I mean, we're moving toward kind of a parallel system where there's the what sometimes people call social ownership, public housing or units of housing that were produced through inclusionary zoning that's under some sort of public control, and then private housing, which is market housing, and except for people like me who keep the rents low, for the most part the rents are soaring, and it's creating kind of two separate societies within the city.
Well, the government isn't building public housing anymore. They're not in that business, and that's part of the problem too. And it's happening all over the country. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it was a kind of a confluence of events, the perfect storm. It happened to coincide with a sort of a social trend of people wanting to move back into cities. So, in Cambridge more so than others, because we have some of these big high-tech companies down the street, and so people are coming here for the jobs, plus people just preferring to live in cities rather than out in the suburbs. you know, and the pressure is enormous.
Yeah, the pressure is enormous. So one way that, I guess, actually, one person in the crowd said, hey, maybe they should find a way to cap similar rent control, but in a way that would be reasonable for all parties.
I don't know. That would be kind of a tough sell. You'd have to get
Isn't that called socialism?
Well, you have to get enabling legislation from the state to reinstitute any form of rent control. But elsewhere, not so much in Massachusetts that I'm aware of, but there are other things like, for example, caps on annual increases in rent. I mean, I think there was a woman up the street from me. I was just reading something today where she got a $400 increase in the rent. And I don't know of any examples currently in Massachusetts where this, so I don't even know if it's legal, because it might fall under the rent control umbrella and not be legal. But elsewhere in the country, there are places where they said, well, you can't raise rents more than 10% in a year, or something like that. I mean, you wouldn't want to have it be so that it was less than the rate of inflation, because then it would just be flat out rent control. But just putting some sort of caps so that if people wanted to increase rents, they would do it at least in a more stable, predictable way, give people a little more time.
Yeah, so the idea, again, this concept of connection is to let the landlord know, say, hey, at some point you were like us, tenants, So, can you be considerate about...
Actually, I was a tenant in my building until I bought it, and then I became the landlord.
Yeah, so it's really to bridge the gap between these two forces, and tenants wanted to have affordability, and landlord wants to have, higher profits on what's available for them to have.
Actually, there's still a lot of landlords around the city, and not just this city, but all cities, who appreciate stable tenancy, tenants who they like and get along with, and they're actually happier to have good, stable tenancy than maximum profit. Right? So this, it's a trade-off.
It's a trade-off, yeah.
To be perfectly honest, if you jack the rent through the roof, the new tenants are going to be very demanding, and that's not so easy. That's harder on you too.
I can't only imagine.
Yeah. So anyway, there's probably some kind of better balance that we can strike.
Did any other issues come up?
Issues of school.
School.
I mean, how students now behave. Behaves. The idea of also. Charter school.
I was going to ask you if there was any discussion of that.
Yeah, we had
it's a hot topic. Yeah,
pretty much. But the conversation needs to go on.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
Less than an hour to talk about these conversations, but certainly it was hotly discussed. Lots of emotion came out. So really, to bring these topics forward within this umbrella of that, hey, we can do a better job. I suspect it would be a good model, if we all feel like we have a stake in making the city a better place. That we are in it. We're all in.
Right.
We're all in. Our children, our educators. That we're not foreign here. We're all in this place, and it means something to us.
Now, one other thing that occurs to me, I don't know whether it would have come up at this town hall meeting, but one question is one of just representation. You mentioned Denise Simmons was at the meeting, and former city councilor, former mayor Ken Reeves was at the meeting. But there are some people, I think, in I'm pointing toward the port now for those who are watching this from Philadelphia, right? Who were, for better or worse, were upset or bothered by the fact that Dennis Benzen left the city council in the most previous election. So,
he didn't leave it. He
was not reelected.
He wasn't reelected.
Right. Is that a theme that is expressed by people to sort of talk about? Do people feel they have sufficient representation amongst elected officials?
Yeah, there's that feeling that we are, some neighborhoods are not well represented, in that city hall. So his loss was a loss for many. Right. And now it's, I guess, with my candidacy, it's a good thing, especially among people of faith, because that's where they know me most. And they said, "Gee, Benjamin, well, they call me Brother Ben. We wish you really the best because
Right, actually, that's
you
something
know."
we actually were talking about this beforehand, because your name is Ronald Benjamin, but the thing is that you're more often referred to as Benjamin.
Benjamin,
Yes.
Benjamin. Yeah. So at St. Paul Union Baptist is
Right.
Brother Ben.
Yeah, Brother Ben. Yeah. So let's see. So a few other things. Let's see, perhaps here. Well, I don't know. But let me just sort of turn it over to you. If you have any other particular things that you wanted to communicate about your candidacy, or other things that came out of the town hall meeting.
Oh yes. The community felt yes. The community felt that connection is the way to go. And to have connection is not a singular movement. We'll require lots of partners to do that. From academia to government, to even, what's happening right here on Kimball Square, with these tech companies, So it's all of us,
Well, actually, that actually, since I mentioned Dennis Benzan earlier, one of the themes that he promoted as a candidate. It was what they call sometimes STEM or STEAM, science, technology, engineering, math, and if you put the A in there, it's the arts as well. But it's, at least from my vantage point, some of that initiative has sort of lost steam. The STEAM initiative has lost some of its steam. But, matching jobs, getting jobs for people who are coming up of some of the parts of the city who are maybe a little less advantaged that way. Is that something people actually explicitly?
Yeah, some. What's his name? Anthony. Anthony, pretty much. He's a college grad now, but certainly he wants to go into science, and I have a science background. I have my bachelor in science and chemistry. So I told him, this is the right way to do it. You need to contact, the various pharmaceutical company, but the concept of STEM definitely would help him, in trying to get internship and so forth and so on.
I mean, it's hard. It's hard. It's very difficult to just take somebody who's just born and raised in the area and you can't just put them into the job, right? There's education, there's training, there's a lot of steps that goes into that. The city has some programs. I think we can do better. To be sure. But
it's to have them really take they're not just here to make profits, which is great, but they can be more sociable in terms of expressing their gratitude for being part of the city. So therefore, the idea is, hey, we need help. Our children need help, and to help, it's the right way to do it. I think
in the spirit of the whole idea of connection and connectedness, I'm sort of reminded how some years ago we had companies like StrideRite. We're here in Polaroid.
Wow. And you go way back.
Oh yeah, but one thing that really characterizes both of those companies is that they were great community partners. Very charitable. They were very much wanting to find employment opportunities for people.
That was a long time ago. It's just not like that anymore.
Well, but the thing is, that's one of the great missing pieces is that as new companies have come in here, they may be willing to be charitable in certain ways, but the thing is, in terms of actually creating job opportunities.
Well, those were a lot of manufacturing jobs. There were a lot of jobs you didn't require a high. I mean, now you've got it's all
I agree.
digital and innovative and all this stuff, and it's a much higher bar.
But even the pharmaceutical companies, in addition to the research, there's actually a manufacturing aspect.
No, that's true. That is true.
So anyway, I think that's one of those things I think we can hope for, but I think we also have to kind of maybe get the city to engineer policies to actually try.
Aren't they doing that a little? Community development, don't they have?
They try. I mean, the thing is, these workforce development programs. I give a lot of credit to the city for trying, but the thing is, it's sort of tough because you have to still be partnering up with a willing partner. And I think that's been the biggest kind of scariest contrast is that you've got some of the poorest parts of Cambridge in the shadow of some of the richest companies.
Yeah, the richest company in the world. Man.
Yeah, in the world, and you know, that's sort of a hard contrast.
Yeah, so therefore, that's the vision, you know, to have these companies reach out, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you're great, yes, but what about your neighbor that's next door to you? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you know, so their lives matter. Therefore, this concept now, you know.
Yeah.
You know, Black Lives Matter as well. You know, we all matter. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's not all about what is it, making the money. You know,
Right.
It is about socially correctness. You know.
Yeah.
You're making money, but you gotta look out for those who are looking at you who need help. You know,
yeah.
You can reach out in the school. You know,
Yeah.
so.
All right. Well, we got a minute or so left. I think that's right. Yep.
A minute. Okay.
So again, let's sort of wind down here with. Let's get back to Ronald Benjamin as the candidate. So, do you have any sort of thoughts on how you're sort of going to try and get from point A to point B in November 2017?
Are you going to run on your own or on a slate, as we say?
I prefer it on my own, you know,
Okay,
because well, I would say the base that I have right now is pretty fired up. The people are really strong in terms of this idea of connection that, you know, they know that's what's missing. So to be a champion of this idea will bring a lot of people under that umbrella. I mean, so what I'm looking for right now is people to partner with, you know, the police, you know, some other churches. Harvard, you know. I mean,
Well, we're down to our last 15 seconds here now. So anyway, we just want to thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank
And
you,
we
Robert.
definitely want to see you
Thank you.
next week. So
Yeah.
anyway, we'll be back in 3 minutes with part 2 of Cambridge Inside Out.